Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Welcome once again, Hazmat community, to this episode of the Hazmat Roundtable 2.0, the only interactive show that lands on the X and in the hot zone where everybody has a seat at the table. We are here with Bob Kosh, Mike Monaco, myself, and our special model, Ron Huffman. Look at him. As handsome as the day gets long. We'll be in the hot zone and on the X with the Hazmat guys. Today, Roundtable is brought to you by ResponderTraining.com, Ron Huffman. Also, you can reach out to Responder Training at 765-524-4848. That's ResponderTraining.com, and you'll find that link. And all of our sponsors, which is Northeast Hazmat, TB Metal Art, K&R Plaques, 101 Consultants, and Intercontinental Fire Training Academy. Welcome, guys. How's everybody
Thank
doing?
you. Hello.
Hello. I got to start real quick. I just got to say, we're missing somebody special right here, right here, and right here.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody's got a seat at the table except Jason.
Except Jason. So,
I'm a poor
Jason,
excuse for a stand-in. I'm sorry.
poor Jason, that poor guy. He is on a special assignment, witness protection plan, government lockdown, whatever you want to call it. He's going to be off the grid for a little while, but we know he's watching and listening. So, mwah.
Who?
Yeah, good old what's his
Yeah.
name?
Don't take long, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, enough about him. Let's move forward.
So, what do we got today? I heard we have a juicy tale of woe from the propane land, and that's why we brought on our hired gun, Ron Huffman.
We do indeed. So I think it was a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago, there was this video going around a bunch of social media sites that a lot of us belong to. If you're watching this and you don't belong to it, Hazmat Group 2 on Facebook page is a great one. That's one of the ones that I run, and we post a lot of stuff on there, a bunch of different incidents and whatnot. But there was a video of a propane tank that was on fire behind a 2-story, I don't know if it was wood frame, concrete block, whatever, apartment building. And there was a lot of discussion back and forth about how are we going to attack it. And there was some discussion, I'd run right in when it's 3/4, I'd surround and drown, I'd evacuate and whatnot. So what I thought we could do is I'll show that. And then we've got our propane expert here, Mr. Ron Huffman. Let him throw his 2 cents in about that. And then he's also got something really cool dealing with, was it Ron, water injection?
Yeah, water injection.
Water injection stuff. So I got a little video queued up for that too. So, basically we're talking about some propane tonight.
I love it.
All right.
All right. So without further ado, let me get this thing queued up here. Stand by one momento, por favor. And we're going to pull it up and hopefully it will play. You guys got that?
Yes.
Okay. So just take a look at this. Your first new engine company, some people would attack it, some people wouldn't.
That is the 20-pound cylinder episode. That's not the one a minute ago. That's a 20-pound cylinder.
That is a 20-pounder. Okay.
Yes.
So if we cue that back a little bit and you see that, there's a lot of people that would see that and go, hey, you know what? Let me just freeze it right there. You're going to get the call. It's going to be probably grill fire behind a building, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And we've probably all been on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And most people would think, okay, it's not a big deal. It's behind the house, behind the apartment in this case, which looks like maybe concrete block on the bottom and wood frame up top, judging by the windowsills.
Mm-hmm.
How many people out there would go up and attack this? Bobby, what would you guys do?
Well, first, we probably wouldn't be there in time. This whole thing would have been over by the time we got there.
Hold on a second, because is this how would I know this is propane grill versus natural gas grill?
Good point.
Right? Like I'm pulling up, what if this is a natural gas grill that broke a line?
First
And
thing is pressure.
what's up?
First thing is pressure.
Okay, explain that to me. What am I looking at that's making, Ron, what am I looking at that's making you go, mother effer, that's propane, not natural gas?
Well, natural gas is going to be fed to the house usually no more than about 2 psi, because the house is going to run on 11 inches of mercury, 11 inches, less than a pound of pressure. That is more than 2 pounds of pressure blowing out, especially at that volume.
Okay, so even if I had a broken line that was wide open and bleeding out, I am not going to see a natural gas flame come out that hard.
You wouldn't see that kind of pressure blowing out of it.
Okay.
If you look at it right there, it's blowing out horizontal. It's got quite a bit of pressure behind it. So my first assumption would be that that's a propane tank. Now, the next thing is, you know, if that's a 20-pound propane tank, especially being a new tank, it's going to have a QCC Type 1 connector on it.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, the QCC Type 1 connector is that black knob that we see on most of our grills now, as opposed to the old style POL or Presto-like connector. The QCC Type 1 knob, given the time and flame in the right place, will actually melt out and seal the tank if it does its job. It depends entirely on where the flame's contacting the tank, whether the tank's going to fail before that can fail. Obviously, the tank let go here. For me, if I turn that corner, and I tell my students all the time when we do live fire class, this is not a house fire. There is no reason for you to walk up, stand face to face with a propane tank that's going to blow up, and try to man up and put it out. Stand behind something. Get behind a block wall, get behind a vehicle, lob water on that tank until you get control of it. You can't outrun a propane explosion. It's not possible.
What do you think, if you notice right before it releases,
You hear it?
Sudden whoosh.
Yeah. That's that tank actually tearing. Once the tank tears, that product comes out in a hurry. And it comes out in a hurry, then it's going to ignite almost instantaneously. So you're talking about a millisecond there, but you're hearing it as it does it.
So you're thinking this is not an actual blevy, but this is more of a...
No, I think it's a blevy. I think and typical blevy is the tank metal is weakened by the heat. The internal pressure attacks that weakened spot and tears the tank, actually tears the metal.
Right. So, I mean, where is the line between a sudden heat-induced tear or a shit and a blevy?
I do not like a sudden heat-induced tear by heat and internal pressure is a blevy.
Well, I think the shit is more referring to if you still have liquid inside the tank that is not fully converting over. So if you have like a massive oil tanker and you're getting weakness within the vapor space, that can cause a fail, but you're going to get some pressure come out, but it's not going to be all that liquid converting to vapor at one time. So I think that's the difference between a blevy, where you have a boiling liquid, versus just a structural failure and you have vapor pressure pushing on that seam.
Right. That vapor pressure is forcing that metal to come up and out, causing that rip and tear. If you look at the stuff from Kingman, Arizona, you look at that tank car, once it tore in two, you could actually see the line right down the top of the tank where it started its tear, where it stopped its tear, and it laid that tank open flat. And then you had the end of the tank one way, the end of the tank the other way. And that tear, that blevy, that rip was right there along that seam where that fire was blowing down the top of. A blevy always occurs at the point of flame impingement. A blevy has to occur because that's that heat weakening the metal and the internal pressure tearing it too.
They're very closely related. It's just a matter of semantics, and you know what the product inside wants to be ultimately.
Right.
Now, what's odd to me on this one is that it's outdoors. You know, there's not a lot of feedback.
You barbecue inside?
Well, no. I'm saying is that
go there.
You know, all right. I see the fire around the outside of it and everything like that. But there's, and it's hard to see from 150 yards away. But you know, usually you're getting that heat that's feeding back. Like, is it on fire below it? That's why it's feeding into it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, where I'm not saying blevies can't happen outside. What it looks like is there something underneath it that's on fire? Is there maybe combustibles that's underneath it?
Yeah, it could be inside some kind of grill setup to where that release is actually filling the base of the grill, the block structure, however it's constructed, and then that fire is just getting out, making it look a lot bigger instead of just blowing straight out of the tank itself, like what you're talking about.
And it's feeding the cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys see my cursor, or is that just me?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so you can see trying to use my my senses, my CSI thing here. It looks like the grill lid is open right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming this is the cook that was like, oh crap, what am I gonna do? But like Bobby was saying, it looks like there's doors over here. Well, maybe just a chair, but it's underneath. So the size of the grill, only I say this because I just bought one, looks like it has the two doors where the grill would be underneath it. Like what Bobby was saying, is there a gas buildup in that compartment? I guess is what you're trying to say.
The one we had at the fire station that I just retired from, by the way.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. They actually had the bottle you're using and a spare set beside it.
So two, okay.
Yeah, so it could have two bottles under there.
Interesting.
You saw one come apart, but it could have two bottles. Maybe one bottle's feeding the fire, causing the other one.
Now, from what I know about a propane response, viewing this, had that flame been pushing and then suddenly went away, waited a little while and started pushing again, would that give you a little bit different indication as to whether or not you could approach that tank versus just that flame continuously pushing out?
The pressure of the propane will not go away until the product creating the pressure is gone.
Okay.
So if the flame goes away, it has to go away because the fire was knocked down. And if it's knocked down, then it's still producing a vapor cloud that's looking for an ignition source.
Right.
So,
no, I'm not saying the fire's going away. I'm saying that intense fire. So basically, the impression that I was under is the tank is heating up, the pressure relief valve goes off, pushes out a whole bunch of product, and if it's able to release the product, if it's not that hot, if it's in the early stages, then if it releases it faster than the pressure can build up, then it goes away. And then it pushes again and then goes away. And the shorter the intervals between those pulses, or the longer the sustain, the hotter that tank is getting, the higher the pressure. You've now exceeded the pressure of the pressure relief device, and now you're looking at structural failure.
Right, because that tank is going to have a 375 PSI relief valve on it. That service valve on that tank is going to be 375 as opposed to a semi that's setting at 250. Now, my personal belief, and I have nothing to justify this with, is DOT cylinders, portable cylinders have a higher pressure relief valve because it's possible the general public could carry one inside a car when they in the hot summer and not really do it correctly. So I think the pressure relief valve is probably that way to give it a little more cushion so it can actually absorb a little more heat before it opens up and starts dumping in the back of the car while you're at work. That's just my personal opinion. I have not had anybody tell me that to be the truth.
And I'll be honest with you guys, if I took my hazmat helmet off for a second, I just put my first two engine company or truck company helmet on, and I saw this, the first thing I would do would be, we're going to isolate the area and evacuate everybody. Because there's nothing, like we were saying earlier, there's nothing we're going to do with this until it does what it does. Right?
Yeah, especially with the exposure of the house right there. I mean, I'm guessing this is the backyard.
Right.
Because the pole with the power lines and everything like that. And if I was the chief or even the first officer, I'd be stretching lines into the first and second floor, 1 3/4.
From the front.
From the opposite side of this thing. And if you can get in his third line, again, if you can get that fantastical third line around to the rear, but the exposure, the house, the row frame that's there is the problem. And you can see if you scale forward a little bit after the whoosh, a little bit more right there. I look at this siding. Like that was
Oh,
an
yeah.
incredible amount of BTUs that just warped
Absolutely.
that whole thing.
A lot
That
of
whole
BTU.
siding has to be pulled down, like everything.
I was just going to say, what's your thoughts about staging a truck company on that top floor so that after that goes, they're
Totally.
immediately opening up the ceiling to get to the cock loft?
You're
So you should
popping.
be in the attic for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
popping at least 3 or 4 holes, like 1 foot holes, 3 or 4 times across that whole thing. And I would go even so far as going back on each side of it, going front to rear,
Right.
to look for any cock loft exposure. And again, this is not a firematic show, but nonetheless, I mean, there is even though the fire's out, there's a significant potential for
Well, that fireball, that heat, that radiated heat, if it's got or vents underneath the eaves,
Yep, right there.
you've got blown in insulation in there, your potential for that blown in insulation that is just, it's astronomical about
if you
catching.
have even if you had a light that had a bird's nest in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, I can't see it from here, but that brick wall that's there, for those of you that know it or don't know about it, there's something called a soldier's course, right? So every 7 courses of brick, they put one on end like this, and that will go straight across, and that actually ties the inside and outside walls together. I can't see it from here, but if you don't see a soldier's course, then that's probably a facade, which means it's actually wood behind it.
Yep.
Right? Which means that if that birdhouse went through, then you potentially could have fire burning between the brick and the inside, and you might not ever see it. So, with these types of incidents, yeah, you're doing some extensive inspection holes. on
Well,
this.
and something too, we talked about, this isn't a fire show by any means, but something that a lot of people don't take into consideration is just looking at the windowsills. Because if you have a concrete block windowsill sticking out, obviously you have a concrete block bottom. But if you look at the top where the windowsill is flush with the building, we're dealing with a wood frame up there.
Right.
So that's just a good indication. A lot of people don't know that, of how to size up the building, whether it's a concrete block or a wood frame structure. Obviously you got a common attic, and depending on your SOPs, for us, we'd have one truck company taking the long end, one covering the short end, but everybody's up in the attic space, open it up and holding it to that apartment if at all possible, while other crews are taking care of, obviously, the hazardous materials, which is what we're talking about.
It's, you know what, me and Mike actually just had 2 months ago, that one in Queens. I mean, allegedly in Queens. I'm sorry.
The Queen, Australia, Queens.
Australia,
Queens County.
Queens,
Yeah.
Queensland.
Queensland.
Obviously, we were special called in.
Yeah, we were visiting Baxter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had a 20-liter tank. No,
42 kilogram
yeah,
tank.
42 kilograms. But I was talking to Ron about this before. Is that we had a tank, again, another propane one, and the guy was hooking the dude up, and he gave him a little extra in a tank. And when we put the pressure gauge on it, what was it, like 300 pounds PSI?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And we put it on a scale. It's supposed to be 20 pounds of product plus the tear weight of the tank, which in our case, I believe it was 14.4 pounds. So you should put it on the scale, and if it's a full tank, get 34.4 pounds. It was like 50
with an 80%
pounds.
outage.
Yeah.
Right.
You're assuming, we had 50 something pounds in there, which means it was full.
Full.
It took forever.
Ron, I have a question for you. So let's assume for a moment that there are 2 tanks under that barbecue, and one let loose.
Sure.
What is going to be your procedure for inspecting that second tank? Like cooling it, but what kind of things, what are we going to be looking for when we do a cylinder assessment on a propane tank that's been involved with fire? And is there ever a time that we would just assume that tank is good? Or because it's been impinged in fire, we're just going to take it out of service?
If I'm on scene, we're going to do everything we can with the equipment we have to empty that tank. We're going to take it out of service. We're gonna tell
Why?
people why.
Yeah, why? Why? I mean, if
Because it's been stressed.
okay,
It's just been stressed. It's been thermally stressed. Um, the pressure relief valve has had heat on the spring because of where it was at. Maybe that pressure relief valve is not going to release at 375 this next time. Maybe it's going to release it a lot less. So for me, we're going to put water on that tank. We're going to cool that tank down to a normal, cool spot. And then we're going to attach a QCC connector or a POL, and we're either going to flare it or we're going to dump it atmosphere. 20 pounds is not going to hurt us either way.
so if we're looking at or if a fire crew is listening that's not operations level, and they come across a tank that's been impinged on fire, what should their protocol be? What should the next step be? They're just a regular operations.
The easiest thing to do is keep it cool.
Okay.
And if they don't have anything to work with and they don't have the knowledge behind them to do what they need to do, keep it cool. You can watch a pressure gauge. If you don't have a pressure gauge, just keep water on it and contact your local propane company and say, hey, I need somebody here. I need a service tech. They're going to get there and they're going to attach a gauge to it. Once they get a gauge on it, they're going to see what the internal pressure looks like. Maybe the float gauge has been damaged. They don't know how much liquid is in it. Get out your thermal imager. Look at that tank. See if you can see a product level. Maybe the tank we're worried about is actually empty. Maybe it's not. But
how can we tell if it's empty?
Well, if you look at it and there is no liquid line in that tank, because the liquid in the tank is going to cool much slower than the outside surface of the tank. If we put a little bit of water on the outside tank, start cooling it, that inside liquid is going to show a lot hotter than what the outside is. So we should see a product line very easily by looking at that tank with a thermal imager. If you see no line, then there's probably no liquid in it.
Or it's not leaking.
Close to fire.
Right.
Or it's filled to the brim.
Or it's filled to the brim.
Or it's filled to the top, yeah.
I'm going to give you just a little bump.
It's just a little, hey, extra. You give me a tip, I'll give you a little extra,
And along that same line, open the bleeder. Open the bleeder on that tank. If that bleeder is dumping liquid, then it's above 80%.
How do I find the bleeder? What are we talking about, bleeder?
Two ways. On a small cylinder, service valve, on the side of the valve, there's a screwdriver slot that has a hole drilled in it. Stick a screwdriver in it, rotate it counterclockwise. If liquid is in that tank, you'll get a white vapor out of it. Now, I say white vapor, if you're out in a very dry atmosphere, such as out west, you may not see that white vapor. I went out a few years ago. A friend of mine asked me if I'd ever taught a class out west. At that time, I had not. So we were in Las Vegas, and I went to a propane company and said, hey, I need a pigtail and a 20-pound cylinder. He looked at me like I was nuts. I said, well, I want to go out in the desert, and I want to turn some liquid propane loose and light some fires. I thought everybody did this kind of stuff on vacation. I don't know. I'm just different. So I go out across from the NASCAR track out north of Vegas, and I dump liquid propane out of the tank. I get no liquid vapor like we would see in our areas. Also, by dumping vapor off of it, that was an inverted bottle. By dumping vapor off of it, I could not get a frost on the outside of the tank because there's no humidity to freeze the tank. In our areas, this part of the country, you're always going to pick up some moisture from outside. It's going to stick to the tank. You get a frost line. Depending on where you are in the world, you may not get that based off humidity. But if you can, either way, no matter what you do, if you dump vapor, you're going to get a cold differential based off of the fact that you're auto-refrigerating the product inside the tank. Whether you see frost or not, your thermal imager will show it to you.
So I was going to say, if you're in a desert, a thermal imaging camera can act as your frost.
Absolutely. You're going to see that differential because that product inside is getting colder and colder. It's going into auto refrigeration.
Awesome.
It's good stuff, man. We need more of this. These back to basics things.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think people take it. It's one of the statistically, 'tis the season, as they say, propane season right now. Statistically, there's a lot of them right now. Like it doesn't happen a lot in November, December, January. But right now, we should be spinning up for these things and and almost quarterly look at what we're probably going to see. This is not atypical.
Something else that most people don't realize is lawn equipment that uses propane power. The connections on lawn equipment that comes out of the factory, they look like a fork truck cylinder, but they're left-hand thread instead of right-hand thread.
What kind of lawn do you have? Do you have propane power?
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
You ever seen them?
No.
No.
The big zero turns, the commercial units are typically dual, look like fork truck cylinders mounted on the sides, and they run the equipment off of it.
Liquid
So they're not pouring gasoline in the hot one. They take a tank off, put a hot tank on, and they're gone again. But if you're going to make connections to those, you have to have the left-hand thread connector instead of just the standard right-hand thread connector. So if somebody's putting together a kit, then throw one of those connectors in your kit just in case you have people in your area that do commercial lawn equipment or lawn care.
Thank God there's no lawns in Manhattan.
Yeah.
No wonder you guys are lost. You don't know what I'm talking about. It's that green stuff. It grows.
Wait a second. Propane?
But see, Ron, they roll that out on the tops of the buildings.
Yeah,
up
it was
there
a-
to make it look like grass.
It's synthetic.
You mean the AstroTurf? They cut
That's
that.
true.
Oh, I'm going to bring you guys to Indiana and show you what corn looks like.
I've never heard of this. We had to shoot tanks, I think, right? You guys shoot tanks all the time?
Yeah, if they have ammonia in them for meth labs, yeah, they shoot them.
There you go.
Oh my God.
Right.
All right, well-
If do we have a few seconds? I got,
Yeah, we got time.
one more
We got all
one
the
more
time.
question.
One.
Okay. So first new company comes in, they end up going in and they put water on it and they put the fire out.
Okay.
We've seen it multiple times. We've been on the phone with the chief and we're like, just have them cool the tank, don't put the fire out. Who do you think is on the nozzle? 3-month probie. Can't fathom not putting the wet stuff on the red stuff and the fire goes out. What should be their next steps?
Well, two things. In my live fire class, I teach everybody, if you pull up and there's fire under the dome, put the fire out. Where's the most dangerous place on that tank to have fire? On the vapor space. I don't care what you do. You stick a straight stream, you stick a pattern of some kind out there and you kill it. Because the part that's going to blow up and kill you is where the fire is heating that metal on the tank and cause that tank to blevy. So I want the fire out. Now we'll deal with the leak. So we'll get the dome opened up, we'll keep spraying water. Maybe we shut off a valve. If you can't shut off the valve, something's damaged. You're applying water till you get the product out of the tank. You get some help out there. But the most important thing is get the heat off the tank. I'm not worried about vapor leaks. I mean, I've got a fire truck, I've got water supplies, I've got the ability to do that. It's more important to us to not let our people get killed because, we don't want to put the fire out. I want to kill the heat. Now, that being said, if I can keep a film of water between the fire and the tank, as long as I keep the tank, and I teach this all the time, shiny and wet. I don't care if it's 500 gallon a minute, I don't care if it's 1,000 gallon a minute, I don't care if it's 2 gallon a minute. If I can separate the fire from the tank, I can wash that heat away as that water runs across. We just had a tank Sunday, a 1,000 gallon tank that was overfilled. We got out there with a garden hose. In 5 minutes, we dropped the pressure in that 1,000 gallon tank, 25 PSI. We set up a flare. We were in a garden hose on one end. Me and the guy out there, we're not even turnouts because this is just an overfilled tank we just need to get pressure off, it gets volume out of it. And we just kept water running over the end of the tank or where the flare was, and our pressure never came back up. So the big thing is we want to keep that water on there, just separating the heat source from the tank, whether that be the leaking tank itself or the house or whatever's causing that heat. We want to separate those two. Let that water do its job. And it doesn't really take a whole lot of water. There's, depending on whose book you read, it says you must use an unmanned master stream nozzle with, 1,000 gallon a minute or 500 gallon a minute. I don't care. You keep it shiny and wet, you're taking the heat off of it.
That's awesome. Well, while we got you here, Ron, we're going to wrap up with water ejection.
Okay.
Because I know you have a class on that. You travel around the country teaching this. So I've got a little short video here, and then hopefully you can talk over this. Stand by. Let me get to the share mode here. Because this is something that is lost art that people just are not taught, I don't think. So here we go. You guys see that?
Yep.
Yeah, I can. So what's going to happen here? The first thing is the first crew is going to come up. They're going to manage product vapor. Their job is to make sure the other crew comes up in a safe area. Once the product vapor has been taken care of, the crews come up and they're going to connect the vapor flare. They're going to get tank pressures off that line. The other crew is going to attach the water injection unit. The water injection is there so that they can actually float the propane above the leaking area of the tank. Now, if you can't get the water above the leaking area, you can't use water injection. It doesn't do any good for this application. So within 15 seconds of turning the valve on, that they now have a water leak. So instead of standing there for the next 3 hours spraying water, dissipating vapors, they were able to go in and convert that to a water leak. Now they can go in there and go, oh, there's a piece of car bumper stuck in a valve, and I can pull that out, and that takes care of the problem. There's just, it gives you opportunities to get in and see in a safe area or convert it. And maybe we can't do anything. And one of the things that I put together, and anybody wants it, I'll send it to them. A document talks about merging tactics. So what we do is we take water injection, we inject water in a tank. We get in there and we see what's going on. Once we've identified what's going on, it's like, oh, I can't fix it, but I can't pump the tank off and I can't burn liquid because I've got water in my tank. So what we'll do is we'll go in there and we'll wrap the leaking area with a rag. Let the water bleed through the rag, and the next thing coming out of the tank is going to be propane, liquid propane. It's going to freeze the rag, convert that to a freeze patch. Now I can actually pump off or burn off the tank that had a liquid leak and still maintain that protection because I've got a freeze patch wrapped around it when I got in there. And the whole thing for me is our guys and girls got in there in a safe, explosion proof atmosphere to get in and see what they were doing.
Ron, I got two quick questions for you. Todd Burton just asked, what pressure do you have to put in to get water into the tank? Over 100 pounds?
Now, you want to go 20 PSI or more. I like 50. So okay. if you get a tank reading, and just say your tank reading's at 100, I'm going to pump at 150. And the only reason I do that, the more I pump, the faster I get water in. And we never see this tank actually increase pressure. So we've had this tank all over the country, and the only time I've seen it increase pressure is in Kentucky, and it was 30 degrees outside. The water I was putting in was warmer than the propane.
I have one question, and we'll finish it up on this one because somebody, I don't think they were correct, but I'm going to ask you because you're the expert on it. They were saying that not only is it lifting for a low leak, if you have a tank with a leak on the bottom part, this would be an opportunistic place to do it. But they were saying even if it isn't a low leak and you have to evacuate a tank, use the water to almost pressurize and move the liquid up to flare it faster.
No, they're correct. You can take a tank, and what I would do is I would hook up a vapor flare and probably drop some of the pressure a little bit. And if I'm working off tank pressure and water pressure, I'm not overpressurizing. What's my relief set at? Probably 250 or greater. So as long as my pressure doesn't exceed 250 PSI, if I'm pumping in at 150 PSI, I can force that product up out of the top of that tank, like an underground tank, right up and out and be done with it and not be on scene for hours and hours and hours.
Unless we're overtime.
Correct. You can utilize water to empty a tank. And this is if you've got a tank laying on its side, you can lift the propane up and continue to burn liquid as you keep bringing it up a little bit at a time until you get a tank that's half full of water, half full of vapor. Now you've got a tanker that's easy to move off the roadway.
And Ron, real quickly, this would be a good tactic if you had some type of underride where you had an automobile accident where the car had gone underneath the tank or ruptured some of the piping or whatever the case may be, and you had liquid propane coming down on top of the car where somebody, let's say maybe you trapped. This is a good tactic. So now I'm dealing with water and not the liquid propane, correct?
Absolutely. And there's a video out there of a motorcycle wreck on just a small 1,000-gallon tank. Guy drives a motorcycle and breaks the piping. When you look at that leak, the first thing you want to do is go up there and shove water in that tank, because now that liquid coming out of the bottom is a water leak. Now we get the motorcycle out there and we can go in there and find out what's going on.
Awesome.
It's all about how quick I can convert it. And then we'll deal with it. I don't care about water in a tank. Water in a tank's easy. That's methanol when we're done.
I love
Good
it.
stuff.
Well, I think that wraps up another interesting episode of the Roundtable. I would like to thank Ron Huffman, our recently retired Ron Huffman, for coming on and sitting
Thank
in
you.
Jason's seat, which hopefully will be vacant for as long as possible. No, I'm totally Jason. Don't hate me. I love you.
We love you. We
laughing.
miss
I
you.
do too.
He's
Yeah.
laughing. I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
But on behalf of the crew, I'd like to say thank you for everybody and enjoy your night. We'll see you soon.